Okay, I feel like it's no surprise that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem was pretty good. I've been anticipating this movie ever since the first trailer came out. It seemed like it was gonna have some pretty decent comedy and really fun action, but I was immediately hooked by the stunning animation style. This film looked so visually interesting and unique, I knew I had to see it when it came out. So I'm glad to say that this film pretty much met my expectations. I really like our brand new tween-age Mutant Ninja Turtles. In this adaptation, Seth Rogen made it apparent that he wanted the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to be played by actual teens for once, and quite frankly, they did a fantastic job. Each one of our voice actors made the characters feel unique and independent, but also very close to one another. They really felt like brothers, the way they'd bond over certain things and clown the shit out of each other for others. By making these characters younger, it makes them more immature, but also gives them way more room to grow. And with the way this film ended, it seems like we are 100% getting a sequel and maybe more, which gives us plenty of time to watch our characters grow. And other than the Turtles, almost every single other character in this film gets a solid amount of screen time. I mean, this adaptation of Splinter has to be one of my all-time favorites. I absolutely love him being a worried stay-at-home father, who has a very reasonable prejudice towards humans. Like any reasonable parent, Splinter doesn't want anything bad to happen to his kids, and after what he's seen what the humans have done to him over the years, he doesn't want the same to happen to them. So he puts up walls and creates rules to try and force the turtles to be shut off from the human world. But anybody who has ever been like 13 knows that if there are rules set by your parents that are not to leave the house, you're probably gonna fucking leave the house. Splinter has to accept that the boys are growing up, but they also need to respect his boundaries. And I really like the dynamic they have throughout the film. It's so obvious how much their dad cares for them. And it's not until exactly what Splinter said would happen to them happens to them for the turtles to realize, aw shit, Pops might have been onto something. Splinter is also voiced by Jackie Chan, and I absolutely love him in this role. Almost every single one of his lines is absolute gold. You know how it's incredibly entertaining to hear Nicolas Cage behind the voice of Spider-Man Noir? That's how I felt here with this one. Jackie Chan brings such an excellent voice to the character. He genuinely has some of the best lines in the entire film. I need more Jackie Chan Splinter in my life, man. Superfly and the rest of the mutants are also on screen a great amount, and I don't think they got sidelined really at all. I think the second best voice in this entire film is Ice Cube behind Superfly. God damn, he brought everything he had to this role, and it's so entertaining hearing him behind the voice. And even then, other than just him, the rest of the other mutants do just enough to stay relevant in this film without being forgotten about or sidelined like crazy. And that's pretty impressive to me. I was surprised they didn't actually forget about really any of the characters, but I'd say that everybody got an equal amount to do. The action was also top tier. Although I wish there was more of it, whenever there is an action scene, it's absolutely phenomenal. You do not want to look away from the screen at all because every single one stands out in such a great way. My favorite one in particular being the montage of the turtles taking down all the different gangs in the city to try and figure out where Superfly was. Cutting all the scenes of the turtles fighting together while they're doing very similar actions to take down bad guys is the coolest shit I have ever seen. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's definitely one of my favorite fight scenes ever. I would watch that shit over and over again, so I absolutely hope the sequel gives us more action, because all of it here was great. Another thing I really liked was the common themes between characters. In the beginning of the film, it's clear that all of our characters are doing what they're doing because they want something. The Turtles wants the world to see them as heroes. They can casually fit in with the human world. They want to be able to go to high school and live their lives without ever feeling like outcasts. Originally, they're going out of their way to stop Superfly, not because he's bad, but because stopping him will get the humans to like them. April documents the Turtles and writes reports on everything they're doing all over New York City, but not initially to help them do good, but to get people to stop disliking her. She's using the Turtles as a way to get popular in school. Superfly wants to be accepted and also wants to casually live on Earth. The only thing that's different from his motivation is he wants to kill every single human imaginable. All of these characters in some form or another are selfish. The Turtles are selfish because they're doing all this hero work not for the good of the world, but for them. April's reporting on the Turtles, but not for the good of them, but for the good of her. And Superfly is gonna kill everybody on Earth for the good of him. And mutant kind. But the thing that separates our protagonist from the antagonist is the way our characters have a change of heart throughout the story. I really like the scene where the Turtles realize that even though they're trying to stop Superfly, humankind doesn't really care and kind of just hates the mutants altogether. For a second, they want to leave, but they end up deciding that the right thing to do would be to stop Superfly and save New York City. Now, more for the moral obligation of saving the city. April has everything she needs from the Turtles. She has them on video, she has multiple stories about them, she could absolutely report on these mutants and say that they're doing bad just like everybody else is. But instead, she goes out of her way to let Splinter know when they get captured, and also goes out of her way to tell the human world that the turtles are actually good and helping us. And I like to think that that's the reason why, spoiler alert, Superfly's plan fails. He was selfish and always only thinking about himself. He made it seem like the ideals that he had were shared by the other mutants in his family, but quite frankly, they just didn't know there was any other way to stop people, so they were just going along with him because he was the oldest and he led them. This leaves Superfly alone and isolated, leading to his character's demise. Now, as I was saying earlier, other than the great characters and the pretty awesome action scenes, this movie's animation style is perfect. I actually like that the mutants look more normal than the humans do in this film. There are multiple times throughout this entire film that certain effects look hand-drawn, and it's so awesome. I am absolutely all for this new animation wave of 3D animation being blended with 2D animation. It's using the best of both worlds in the most fantastic way. I will 100% be rewatching this film for so many different reasons, and the animation is a massive one. Before I wrap this video up, I think I'd like to talk about some of the things that actually bothered me a little bit in this film. Now, I will say, because I like this movie as much as I did, a lot of the things I had problems with were mainly nitpicks. Now, although I think this movie is pretty funny, there are definitely parts that get very old, and I'd like to say that that's mostly with the pop culture references. There are multiple times throughout this film where the characters will go on this really long pop culture rant listing as many fucking things they can possibly name that exist in the real world, and I'm not gonna lie, it takes me out of the scene completely. Now, I'm very aware comedy is subjective, and some people might have thought this shit was amazingly funny. And although I do think this movie has some great comedic moments, I just don't think that the pop culture stuff was one of them. Sometimes the pop culture shit just kind of felt like a mix of what the kids were saying in the recording booth and whatever Seth Rogen was having them say. I just feel like the characters kept naming shit for the sake of naming it. I'm not gonna question how you random sewer mutants watched all these movies and played all these video games and know about all this random shit, but just stop talking about it. Look, I don't have an issue at all with characters being fans of certain things. I actually like Donatello being an anime fan. That makes perfect sense for his character. It just feels like reference after reference after reference, and to me, it got kinda old. Like, I don't need to hear the Ninja Turtles reference Avengers Endgame for the fuck of it. Why did they do that? They didn't even reference it. They were just like this scene in Endgame. Why did you guys do that? But genuinely, other than that, I really enjoyed this film. Overall, I think I'm gonna give TMNT Mutant Mayhem an 8 out of 10. Definitely one of my favorite adaptations of the Turtles, and I'm so glad we're gonna get a sequel. I will 100% be back in the theater when that comes out. If you like this video, please consider sticking around. I have a giant playlist full of movie and TV show reviews, and I'm gonna try and get some more content out of Mortal Kombat with that brand new game coming out soon. So as always, like, subscribe, and save Norbert now. Goodbye, guys.